US Navy's Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer USS John Paul Jones type DDG-53 sailed through India's exclusive economic zone EEZ on 7th April without intimating India about the passage. Indian government raised concerns about incident to the US government. The big question is, why did US warship deliberately violated Indian rules and not inform the Indian Navy or Indian government at a time when both countries' relations gaining proximity and a strategic quad taking a structured shape? Was it just a message to China, or is India caught in the crosshair of excess power posturing? In this story, I will tell you about the incident, Indian government's reaction, US Embassy reaction, international maritime rules, anomaly in posturing, about US warship, and inside perspective of a big strategic game. Please subscribe and press bell icon. US Navy's warship USS John Paul Jones sailed through India's exclusive economic zone or EEZ on 7th April without intimating India about the passage. Indian government raised concerns about incident to the US government. Now US Embassy spokesperson in a statement told your channel National Defense, quote, "Earlier this week, the USS John Paul Jones, part of the 7th Fleet, conducted a routine freedom of navigation operation in the Indian Ocean. This operation demonstrates long-standing US support for international law and freedom of seas worldwide. We value our partnership with India on a wide range of issues, including regional security across the Indo-Pacific," unquote. The commander of the US 7th Fleet in a press release earlier said, I quote, "On April 7, 2021, local time, USS John Paul Jones DDG-53 asserted navigational rights and freedoms approximately 130 nautical miles west of the Lakshadweep Islands, inside India's exclusive economic zone without requesting India's prior consent, consistent with international law. India requires prior consent for military exercises or maneuvers in its exclusive economic zone or continental shelf, a claim inconsistent with international law. Freedom of Navigation Operation FONOP upheld the rights, freedoms, and lawful uses of the sea recognized in international law by challenging India's excessive maritime claims. US forces operate in the Indo-Pacific region on a daily basis. All operations are designed in accordance with international law and demonstrate that United States will fly, sail, or operate wherever international law allows. We conducted routine and regular freedom of navigation operations, FONOPs, as we have done in the past and will continue to in the future. FONOPs are not about one country, nor are they about making political statements." Eyebrows were raised in New Delhi following the news that went viral. According to UNCLOS 1982, to which India is a signatory, waters up to 12 nautical miles of a coastline is that country's sovereign territorial waters, and between 12 and 200 nautical miles, its economic exclusive zone. Both India and China have made their own rules with regard to this, despite being a signatory to the international convention. India says foreign vessels traveling through India's EEZ has to give prior notification, while People's Republic of China says foreign countries would need permission from BZ. While innocent passage of foreign ships, including navies, through EEZ is allowed by India, no commercial or research activities, including fishing, is allowed. Following the uproar, Ministry of External Affairs raised issue with the US government. MEA in a statement said, quote, "The government of India's stated position on the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea is that the convention does not authorize any states to carry out in the exclusive economic zone and on the continental shelf military exercises or maneuvers, in particular those involving the use of weapons or explosives, without the consent of coastal state." The USS John Paul Jones was continuously monitored, transiting from the Persian Gulf towards the Malacca Strait. We have conveyed our concerns regarding this passage through our EEZ to the government of USA through diplomatic channels. Indian defense experts claim that while US has not violated the international law but offended Indian rules,
UNCLOS, United Nations Laws of the Seas, allows you free innocent passage except in territorial waters of 12 miles. However, there is no ambiguity, but this is an anomaly because 1982 UNCLOS was written. Piracy was not there, terrorism was not there, missiles were not there at that era. But today, because of this, there's an anomaly and nations have issued their own advisories. Bangladesh was the first to issue a very strong advisory. China has been issuing even stronger advisories into the exclusive economic zone. Laws of the seas made in 1982 but not signed by America, signed by China, signed by India, is the law which actually regulates all shipping at sea, including the navies of the world. In India, the Ministry of Earth Sciences has taken over this job, though the experts are in the Coast Guard and in the Indian Navy. However, what has happened is United Navy ships were exercising off Maldives and then 130 kilometers off Lakshadweep to the east. And they were possibly innocently also exercising all the way into the Malacca Straits. Now, a big question has come up that there is no ambiguity at all. What they were doing by the UNCLOS was absolutely clear. That there is no ambiguity, they were possibly allowed to do what they did. However, after there was the terrorism, after there was armed guards allowed on ships, there was piracy, every nation started overtaking the UNCLOS and issuing advisories. China issued the most. Therefore, in brief, what has happened is that America wants to pry open India also so that they can pry open China to have free and open navigation in the South China Seas, and that is the game that is on. Article 51 of the United Nations Law of the Seas is the only one which talks of exercises between archipelago states. Singapore, Indonesia, archipelago states. India is not. And therefore the two nations are advised that they must have bilateral agreements. We have also a small problem with the Kachituvu Island, and of course we have come to a bilateral agreement. But you must know, international law evolves itself. Might is right. China thought it has might and it has been doing what it wants in the South China Sea. Article 49 gives you innocent passage. India too has possibly been issuing advisories. India had issued an advisory long ago. Any ship with nuclear weapons cannot come without, should not come into the India's territorial waters of 12 kilometers. Now, Indian military and the Navy, of course, know what is happening because the fusion center in Gurgaon must have tracked all the ships. So, in brief, once again, it's a big anomaly, but it is no ambiguity. The laws of the UNCLOS are absolutely clear. You can have passage. Free and open passage was what it was designed in the UNCLOS.
Incidentally, US warship violated Indian rules soon after the visit of Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. On 6 April, Sergei Lavrov denied any possibility of a military alliance with India's adversary, China. Instead, he raised concerns over possibility of formation of a Middle East NATO or Asian NATO. India apparently was sailing in the same boat with Russia on this issue.
No, we have fixed that in our bilateral relations adopted at the highest level in the course of the Russia-China summits, where we said that our relations are at their highest in the history. But these relations do not pursue a goal of establishing a military alliance. By the way, we've heard speculations about pro-military alliances not only regarding Russia-China relations. We also heard about such alliances allegedly being promoted as such as Middle East NATO, and we also heard about Asian NATO. Today we exchanged views on this, and our Indian friends have the same position as we. We believe that this is counterproductive. We are interested in inclusive cooperation that is for something, not against somebody.
Did this irk US that led to India's arms twisting? US warship sailed through India's untroubled waters, unlike Taiwan Strait or South China Sea islands. If today US can violate India's rules, then tomorrow any country would violate with impunity. Chinese Navy's second homegrown warship is ready for deployment on high seas. Like Chinese submarines that keep trolling Indian waters, Chinese warship would not hesitate to enter India's economic exclusive zone if India does not protest misadventure of a friendly nation today.
The problem here, I think the US Embassy has said something about they're exercising their freedom of navigation and so on. The trouble is they were transgressing through a partner country's waters. This is not Chinese waters. This is not the Taiwan Straits. These are the Lakshadweep Islands, waters around it that are manifestly Indian territory, not disputed by anybody. While the Taiwan Strait is disputed maritime territory. So the US Embassy statement doesn't make sense because it courtesy demands that the United States not take things for granted, not take their strategic partners and even the allies that they take for granted that they've done in the past. That's not their normal way of doing things. This is not something that we should allow the Americans to get into a habit of doing, because this really means that India then gradually loses its sovereignty. If the United States, then the other allies and other partners and so on go through Indian waters as if, well, they are a friendly country and therefore we can do what we want. No, that's not how it happens. You have to have permission from the Indian government to pass through Indian waters. And therefore, this is simply not something that should be tolerated. And because it will set a bad precedent. If we do not protest, and it's a good thing that the MEA protested the passage of the warship through Indian waters. And we should maintain very strongly that the United States cannot do this in the future without permission, express permission from the Indian government.
India in no case should let itself being in the crosshairs of existing or emerging superpowers. Sovereignty issues should not be compromised, whatever it takes.
The latest episode where the US Navy seems to have conducted freedom of navigation operations in India's exclusive economic zone has created some flutter. But the reality is that such operations, FONOPs as they are called, have been conducted by US Navy in the past as well, and they have been doing it pretty regularly every year or so. And they used to publish it in their annual reports. What has happened this time is that they have publicized a particular operational issue which they have matter which they have just conducted in the case of India in India's exclusive economic zone. In the past, when such operations used to happen and they would be publicized in their annual reports, India would simply take note of it. And there was a tacit understanding between the two sides that given the differences in the interpretation of the legal positions on this issue, this is not something that would change in the short term. So both the countries were willing to live with it. This time, in my opinion, it seems to have been done not because of any strategic logic, but it seems to have been more of a bureaucratic impulse.
In the last, let me tell you about something more about US Warship. USS John Paul Jones is the third Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer. She is named after American Revolutionary War naval captain John Paul Jones. The ship is currently part of Destroyer Squadron 23 and administratively reports to Commander Naval Surface Forces Pacific. John Paul Jones, known as Harm's Way, is capable of operating independently as an element of a coordinated force and to direct and coordinate anti-air, surface, undersea and strike warfare operations. The ship is equipped with the Aegis combat system and is capable of conducting both offensive and defensive operations using Tomahawk cruise missiles, RGM-84 Harpoons and RAM-66 standard missiles, CIWS and 127mm gun. The warship is fitted with an integrated chemical, biological and radiological defense system. Hope you like this story. What do you think of this issue? You may share your thoughts and analysis in the comment box of the video. Please share and subscribe my channel. Shailesh Kumar, National Defense. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram.